Yeah, I went over and helped get ready. There's all that stuff from that estate sale. I mean, it is a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff too.
And today I saw a friend of mine at lunch, and he was doing some. He's an electrician. He was doing some work at a lady's house, who is who's who was apparently married to a silent key, and so he said there's a whole bunch of what looked like ham radio stuff to get rid of there too.
Huh. So Wayne, do you need a high-powered tuner?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a big Star tuner over there. One of those big 5 kilowatt jobs.
Yeah, those are good, but it's a lot easier to not have to have a tuner.
Well, yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, depending on how much you're matching, it could be a little bit of loss to that tuner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How'd it go at Larry's house last night, Butch?
It was fairly quick. The antenna was sort of crumpled up. I pulled it down and straightened it out some and put it back up, and everything fell just about like it should. Took right off working.
Well, I tried to straighten it as it went up, but I guess it didn't work as good.
Yeah, I straightened it up some.
And I don't like that pulley on the front side of the, I wish they would put it on the back side of the tower.
Well, something just happened. My Zoom picture disappeared.
We still got you.
Well,
anybody else checking in? Should be that time.
We got 21.
Okay.
Well, there it is now. It came back.
I guess I should plug my camera in. Oh,
I don't know, that
nope,
post office picture does okay.
So I'm ready when y'all are. So can everybody else hear us? It's on now.
Looks like it.
Gene says Zoom is misbehaving for what it's worth. So for what it's worth.
Oh.
Well, Wayne, what are you watching right by over your left shoulder?
Oh, 20 meters. Yeah, there's a, for a while, what was it? Maybe an hour ago, I was listening to an Italian work West Coast stations, one after the other. Band seems to be pretty full.
So you're seeing 21 people, but can they see us or me?
Yeah, we can see and hear you.
Okay. I mean,
people are chatting in, say things are working for them.
Okay, so we ready to start?
I think so.
I guess so. Why not?
Okay. All right. Good evening and welcome to the May 21st meeting of the Tyler Amateur Radio Club. My name is Joe Lisbony, WB5SDV, along with Michael Fowler, Josh Kaufman, Butch Adair, Jack Malone, and Wayne Hoskins. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's a little bit late here, but close enough. And welcome all members and any visitors we have tonight. Appreciate everyone checking in. So we'll move to Michael with the net report. Before that, I will just comment on the 10 meter, our last 10 meter net, we had 16 operators check in. So I thought that was pretty awesome. I don't know if that's a record or not, but it's right up there with it. So go ahead, Michael.
For next this month, April 27th, we had 51. May 4th, we had 48. We had a big night on May 11th at 61.
Wow.
And on the 18th, we had 47, average of about 52. That's a pretty big number. So it's a good deal.
Yeah, very good. I guess people staying at home decide to check into the net. So Wayne, what's happening with the Tyler Amateur Radio Club repeaters?
Well, everything's about the same. Most things seem to be working. Still haven't gotten out there to try a couple of things to get rid of that intermittent chop problem that some people have. But things seem to be working, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll be able to get out there and try a couple of things.
Okay. And while we got you, you want to go ahead and talk about your current views on field day?
Okay. So field day, which is just over a month away now. So thinking about how we could do field day, and what the options were and what the smart things to do would be, and also watching what the league is recommending and all that. So the league is generally recommending, field day at home, lots of single op 1D kind of things, or very small groups, things like that. The Arlington Club, last month I sat in on their meeting, and they were optimistic about being able to do regular field day. Sat in on their meeting last week, and they had already pulled the plug on that. They had called it. And they were way more optimistic early on than I was. And so I talked to Mark Taylor on the phone yesterday to see what his thoughts were. And we came to the conclusion that we're going to recommend against in-person field day this year. There are ways that we could do it safely, but that would be a logistical pain, keeping people far enough apart. And then how you disinfect all the radios and the keyboards and the tables and all of that in between operators is way more of a chore than I think any of us want to take on. So it looks like, do field day from home. There's going to be a lot of single op stations on the air this year. The bands are going to be full, but it could be a good learning experience for everybody to do field day. So yeah, field day from home, and we'll see what happens next year.
All right, Wayne, thanks a lot. Hopefully we'll have a better field day next year. Things will get back to normal. So move it over to Josh, or Treasurer's report.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Currently, we have 86 active club members and 88.59.26 in the bank. Our only expense last month was the antenna analyzer that we purchased. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but Butch has been using that to help club members with some of their issues, so it's already being put to use. We've got some renewals rolling in. It's much appreciated, those who are renewing online, if you choose to do so. If you choose not to renew online, we can take a check. Just send it to the P.O. box, and we'll eventually get out there and get it deposited. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Josh. Moving over to Butch. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with testing, and while we've got you, talk a little bit about what's been going on with the TechNet and what your plans are for that for the near future.
Okay, well, we missed 1 month of testing, and then we had a test session this month in May. So this is the first one we've had since March. We had 5 people come in, 2 for upgrades, which were both successful, and we had 3 people come in as nothing and came out as new hams, 2 new techs and 1 new general. And just to show you how the speed of things going, I guess there's not a lot happening with testing and such. I sent all the results in by PDF email to W5YI Sunday evening after the session. And Monday afternoon, I looked in the database and everything was there. The new hams had their calls in less than 24 hours from the time they took the test, and the upgrades were posted too. And TechNet, we are meeting as usual. The one thing I've changed there is I did add a TechNet for the first Thursday of the month, which is normally shop night. So we're doing a shop night on the air instead of an in-person shop night until further notice. Talking with Michael, that's the plans at the moment. So the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th, and if there's a 5th Thursday in the month, informal TechNet, 7 o'clock on the repeater system. Anybody come in.
All right, thanks, Butch. So is Mark or John Newman available for an E-Tex update? Either one of them there?
I see John Newman showing up.
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, John, good. Bring us up to date. What's going on with E-Tex and the upcoming sale?
Okay, well, first off, let me let everybody know that we are going to support a American Red Cross exercise on Saturday, May 30th. There'll be an email set out to all E-Tex members with information regarding that exercise. It's primarily using WinLink to transmit packet American Red Cross template forms from each individual that's participating over to the chapter office on Reek Road. So looking forward to that. It'll be a peer-to-peer transmission from an individual operator to the what they call the Disaster Operations Center at the Red Cross. And then in addition to that, on June 5th and 6th, we're planning to have a storage sale. We've collected quite a bit of equipment and antennas and a little bit of everything from estates for Silent Key. And plus, we got quite a bit of stuff from Teletouch at one point. So we got a lot of stuff. And it's in storage out on Brandon Drive, 1949 Brandon Drive. And we plan to open at 7 a.m. and run till noon on both those days. That's a Friday and Saturday, the 6th or 5th and 6th of June. And so I'll get an announcement, an official announcement out to everybody, and we'll try to get that to John Armstrong and get it published in the newsletter or whatever he is able to do for us. I think that's it, Joe. Back to you.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And Gene, are there any regulatory changes that we need to know about?
I don't see Gene.
He said he was having trouble with it earlier, so I haven't heard of anything. I think the ARRL is too understaffed right now to worry about it. So I'm sure we'll hear more later. So how many people do we have total checked in, Josh?
We got 30.
30. Okay, so that's pretty good. Great. So go over to Michael and give us an update on how things are going on the election and what the current or proposed plan may be for club elections.
Well, as everybody knows, we decided to postpone regular elections till we could meet in person. The idea has been thrown out to potentially, if all the positions are basically unattested, so it's basically a formality to have a vote, then we may just maybe run a vote to accept the nominees as a poll or something on Zoom to accept the nominees as the new board for 2020 if we can't meet in person, say in June. The board is wanting to go ahead and turn over, and so that's just something we're throwing out there. And if anybody has any issues or concerns, please please let us know. Right now, I don't know that there are any contested races. I think there's only enough nominees to fill the board. I haven't gotten a whole lot of nominees, and so I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. If anybody has any more nominees, feel free to send them to me, Michael at w5fow.com, or K0MEB, who normally this is a lot more organized than it is right now, or KB9LFZ. Normally they would be much more involved in this, but we haven't met in person since we started this. So it's been a whole different ordeal this year. Anyway, we're just throwing that out. We're going to make plenty of announcements and have plenty of feedback time if anybody has any concerns or questions. So that's all we have right now on that. And right now, the current board is just going to move into June, trying to figure out maybe when we can meet in person for a regular board meeting, a regular club meeting, excuse me. That's it.
All right, thank you, Michael. Yeah, the next meeting is
Looks
still.
like Bob Jackson had a question. You can go ahead and talk, Bob, if
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
you want to unmute yourself.
I wanted to know, can you tell us who the nominees are, just so we can be thinking like that?
Yeah, the nominees we have right now are, I think Joe is begrudgingly decided he would stay on another year as president, but he's done a good job, and I kind of hope he does. You've done a very good job, Joe. As for filling for vice president, we have I think it's AK5TX. Patrick Brown was nominated for that. Josh was going to go ahead and fill another year for treasurer, and the at-large were Jack, AF5JM, and Larry Childers of New Ham, KI5HUP, has nominated to fill in on the board this year. So that's our current nominees. And that's, I'm pretty sure that's all the ones I have. If I'm missing somebody, please let me know. I'd have to really go back and dig through my notes to make sure I didn't have that directly prepared, but I'm pretty sure that's who we have at the moment.
Has there been any nomination for Ham of the Year?
There has been exactly one nomination for Ham of the Year, which means that's an uncontested race as well. I would have to go back and look at my notes, and more nominations of Ham of the Year would be nice too. We haven't made a plaque, and we haven't got that decided because of all of the shutdown and madness that's been going on. So we're a little bit at odds of what to do. That's kind of where we're at.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mark.
All righty. So the next meeting is still somewhat up in the air, whether it will be a live meeting or another Zoom meeting. Probably will be another Zoom meeting, but we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to, first of all, hear from the Shiloh Road Church of Christ and see what they have decided, and what would be their rules or constraints for use of the facility by outside groups. And if they're good with us, then we'll have to make a decision. The board will have to decide based on member inputs and other considerations to decide whether we want to do another Zoom meeting or a live meeting. So that's still up in the air, and we will decide that between now and the next meeting time. So anybody has any input on that, feel free to chime in. Okay, nothing heard there. So go into some old business. We were taking orders for a club pack of the Arrow OS 146/440 antenna, the J-pole type antennas. And right now, I need 3 more orders to go ahead and get that. So we've got room for 3 more people, and if we can get 3 more people, we'll go ahead and order that pack. So anyone interested in a antenna can go ahead and sign up now on the screen there, or email or call me or any one of the board members. So I'd like to go ahead and get.
How much are they?
Okay, if you buy them yourself individually, they're $59 plus tax and shipping. But when we get them in the 10 pack for the club, they're $42 a piece, approximately, with tax. I'll have to see. It could be slightly different, but it shouldn't be much different. So it's a substantial savings, and they're real good, sturdy antennas. Good for a primary antenna, and also good for MCOM antenna. They'll survive some pretty severe weather, things like that. So if anybody would like to order an antenna, go ahead and check the block here, or give me a call or an email, or any one of the board members. So if you would do that now, we'd like to go ahead and get those on order. All right. Next, a reminder that we're an ARRL affiliated club, and we encourage all members to consider becoming members. If there's anyone out there that wants to become a member but feels because of current conditions that they really can't afford it, please contact myself or any one of the Board of Trustee members. And the board had voted to give out up to 4 scholarships for ARRL membership. So if you are not a member and you want to become one, it's worth it just to get the magazine, plus the other things they have available. So contact us and let us know. Also, if there's anyone who hasn't, of course, I'll remind you again, it's time to renew your membership, and I think that's going pretty well. If you haven't renewed your membership and you think that you cannot afford it, then call one of the board members, or email myself or one of the trustees, and we will. We've also voted to accommodate a few members that really are facing hardships right now, and that will all be confidential. So we don't want anybody that really wants to be in the club not to be able to do that. And then an update on the Rig Expert antenna analyzer. Butch has received that, and he's got up to speed on it, and has already gone out to at least 2 of our members and helped them resolve antenna issues. And so he's going to try to keep a database of everyone's antenna. He'll dump that data onto his computer, and so if someone has a problem, they get it resolved, or they set up an antenna, then they can check it later if they have a problem and see what the difference is. So I think that's a really good service, and glad we have Butch to do that, and we have some decent equipment now. So that's all I have there. And then, of course, I did mention already that's time to pay dues, so don't forget that. And also the club has, we're looking into acquiring at least 2 UHF VHF stations to loan out to new hams, so they can operate it for a while before they decide what kind of equipment they want, or until they can afford equipment. And so we're looking into that. I have a few leads on that right now, and would also like to get possibly 2 HF stations. So I have one here that was donated that I'm still working on. It was working better than it was when I got it, but it's still not 100%. So I'm still working on that. So we do have that some work going on there. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we can be able to accommodate some people that want to borrow some stations from the club until they decide what it is they want, or are able to afford what they want. So that's in work, and hopefully we'll get that done. So next up is our program presenter this week. So we'll turn it over to Michael. I'm not sure exactly what the title of his presentation is. I think I made one up, but he can tell you what the real title is.
Well, honestly, I don't know what the title is either. It's kind of about me and what I do. That's what you kind of asked me to kind of go over. So I hope I don't bore anyone, and I hope it's interesting to those who are interested in things that are much higher than the UHF we normally deal with. Because I deal mainly in the microwave area in my line of work. And so I will jump over here, and I kind of titled it Why I Became a Ham. I started, I'm assuming everyone can see that, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
So I started working. I got here a little. I became a ham after I started the job a few years, and when I started to become a ham, I had this quote here from my father-in-law that said, "How could ham radio possibly help you understand microwave signals?" Because all he ever thinks about is people on HF or stuff like that, and as we know, HF signals and even VHF, UHF signals are very different than microwave signals in the way they propagate through the air, and so I can kind of understand why he said that, but it was pretty funny, I've learned a lot. I can tell you that it has been a real joy to be a ham, and it's really made me understand a lot of things that happen. So, boy, I didn't click that right. Okay, that's not going to work. So I'm gonna have to use that. Okay. So this is kind of about me. Since 2009, I have been operating Digicom Enterprises. We do business as DC Texas Internet. We are primarily a WISP, wireless internet service provider, and we cover around Smith County primarily, in and around Smith County and down into Frankston, some other places like that. This is a very recent picture of me. You can tell by all the gray in my beard. More about it. This is, we broadcast from around 28 tower sites. We also utilize small repeater sites. I call them repeater sites because they're not large towers for any reason, or anything over, say, a 40 or 50-foot tower like some hams would have at their houses. And they usually have one radio and one access point. So they have one radio to receive the signal, one access to repeat it, basically. We can offer residence connections, and recently we've been able to achieve up to 25 megabits and even higher. And we have commercial applications up into the gigabit range. So this is a rough calculation of our coverage area, the map here on the right side. We cover a lot more than that, actually, but that's kind of, if you're in there, you're more than likely we could hit you. And this was made by the National Broadband Service. They are keeping broadband coverage maps to see who can get internet around the U.S. And the government's taking care of that data, and they gotta have data to prove where they spend their money. So we have to report to them, or it's in our advantage to report to them to help us and help everyone. So it's pretty neat. This was done. I don't remember the software they did this, but when I first did it back in the Obama era, when he was doing the national broadband stimulus or whatever he was doing back then, they used radio mobile. And if you don't know what radio mobile is, it's a ham radio propagation tool. So that was this they used back then, but they have more of a commercial application now. It looks a lot better, costs a lot more money. So what exactly do I do? Well, I take fiber internet off the Plaza building downtown, the black building. I take that and I send that to sectorized antennas. They broadcast the signal out. Well, I sent it, it's more complicated than that, but that's a generalization. That's send sectorized antennas. I mount a dish antenna on, say, a customer's home. We connect that wirelessly. And then behind that, we connect a standard Wi-Fi router and deliver the internet. And they deliver the internet. We deliver it on an Ethernet cable like you'd get out of a cable modem or a DSL modem. And it's pretty good. I call it Wi-Fi on steroids because it really is. We utilize the same kind of technologies on the underlying base and all that kind of stuff. We just apply it in a carrier way, in a commercial way. There's a little more magic that goes on, and we'll get into a little bit more of that. So a big portion of it is, RF engineering. I have to figure out how to get signals through the air without a whole lot of headache. And we use FCC Part 15 equipment. So it's all unlicensed equipment. And it's doesn't require us to have a commercial license to operate. The equipment itself is, it's licensed under Part 15 as the equipment, not the commercial operator license. We use ISM bands and the regular Wi-Fi channels. 900 megahertz is usable, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. We primarily use 5 gigahertz, and that's why I highlighted that. We have used all of those bands at times in the past, but interestingly enough, 900 megahertz is almost completely unusable in most of Texas because Encore, their smart meters they deployed years ago, all use the same ISM 900 megahertz band in a big mesh system. So you live in a gigantic 900 megahertz noise environment. You just don't see it on a daily basis. Oh, I jumped twice. Unlicensed spectrum and frequency management is key, just like amateur radio. We're kind of self-governing ourselves because if I don't self-govern myself, I can step on myself and cause myself a lot of headache. So just like in amateur radio, I kind of have to keep an idea of what am I using and what am I going to interfere with, or what's going to interfere with me when I'm moving channels around and selecting my frequencies to use. This is more of the RF engineering. We're going to go into a little bit more detail. Hopefully we don't get too in depth here for people. In point-to-point scenarios, I typically utilize a 40 megahertz wide channel width. That is very different than say, 2.5K for sideband or something like that. We require that to get to the large data throughput. It's not just putting voice through, we're putting all kinds of signals through to get the throughput. Spectrum efficiency does vary due to interference primarily. In a lab environment, in a very clean world, we can get really, really, really high speeds, but we live in a real world, not a lab environment. So because I use unlicensed spectrum, my efficiency of my links, I call them a link. So say, one connected to another it varies based on what I have to deal with. But in the real world, I can get about 3 megabits per megahertz of data rate, which is around 300, 350 megabits in data rates. In a real world, that does actually get me to around 200, 250 megabits of actual throughput, which means if I was doing just a single one-to-one, and that's all I was doing, I could see around 200 to 250 on a speed test. So if you get to speedtest.net, that's kind of what you would see. But that only gets me to a tower. And then I have to get it to a customer's home, which means I have to connect multiple people to a tower. So I go point to multi-point. I narrow the channel width a little bit. There's various reasons why I do that, but spectral use is one. I don't want to use too much spectrum. I use the larger width to get big bandwidth to a tower, and I'll narrow it down a little bit because I don't need to get so much to each individual customer. With today's equipment, I can get around 50 to 60 maximum throughput. So that's pretty good in an area where there's nothing else. And it is shared among the clients to some extent. So that's something to think about. You know, the more people I put on, the slower it's going to go for everyone involved. And you got to balance that so that everybody kind of gets the speeds you're trying to sell them, you know. But there's not unlimited spectrum in the world. And the FCC is in the process of opening up a bunch more spectrum for Wi-Fi in the 6 gigahertz range. They've actually approved the release of 1200 megahertz of new spectrum, but it is not available yet to me. And so the companies have come up with a good way of dealing with having a reused spectrum through GPS syncing, which means that on a given tower, I can make all of my radios, all of my access on one spot. I can make them transmit at the same time and then stop. All of them stop at the same time and start listening at the same time. And this is a real big deal because in the days before Netflix and everybody using a lot of internet, we could do a lot of stuff. It was not difficult to really do what we were doing. And then there was heavy usage on the internet, and it became much more difficult because as one person starts to use a lot more internet, everyone else has to wait while that person's using the internet. And so in the same style of that, if one radio is transmitting on a tower and I'm close in frequency to another radio transmitting on a tower, if it's transmitting, I'll get phase noise or interference to another antenna, another access point if it's trying to listen. So by GPS syncing, it's wonderful. Everything can stop and talk, or everything can stop and listen, and everything could talk at the same time. And everything gets real quiet when everything's trying to listen. It's really nice. Motorola did it years ago with their products. And some of the newer products, faster products more recently have got it working very well. So it's a pretty neat system. And if anybody wants more in-depth on any of this stuff, they can always come to a shop night, and I'm willing to speak for a long time with someone about this kind of stuff. So we have boxes on the tower. So what's in the box? I have two different pictures here of enclosures I've built over the last couple of years. There's lots of pieces and parts in here, but we're going to look over the left one first. And over here on the left one, we have these little guys right here are just power injectors. All they do is send power up to the equipment because the radio equipment is actually right on the back of the antenna. We run Ethernet cable, Cat5 cable, Cat6 cable down the tower up to the radio, and these just send power up there, and they'll bring it out. And this is just a little repeater, so it's just got a little switch here with a power supply, or a power strip, and that's about it. Pretty simple for a small repeater tower, and I do this quite a bit now. Over here on the right side, it gets a little more interesting. Let's see if I can move this out of my way. Yep, okay. Over here on the right side, it gets pretty complicated. This is a system that we built years ago, and I've improved on it over the years. And I put these in because there are a lot of people in here that get really geeked out on this kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of interesting to look at it. So you take your power, and this here, if you can see this, is it's just an AC to DC power supply is all it is. Puts out around 15 volts. I turn it down a little bit, and it's there to charge my battery system and run into the solar controller. And so I take this solar controller and I put regular power in it. We built this years ago before any other equipment really, this kind of system, before any other equipment existed to do this sort of thing. And so it was a pretty neat little setup. Instead of solar panels, we feed power directly into it and a battery, and then that controls our battery and our charging cycles, and automatically just takes care of everything for us. That feeds, can I clear all of it? Okay, that feeds down to this little guy here. If you can see, this is a DC to DC power supply. It takes 12 volts out from a battery and puts 24 volts DC out. So it's a step up. And we do that because our equipment requires 24 volts DC to operate. And that feeds directly into the switch that's right here next to it, the switch here, which powers all of the cables going up the tower to the individual radios. That's the nuts and bolts of how it works. The other things that are here, I've got an extra switch here just for extra ports to plug things that are not powered up. And then this is a really old board from a company called Microtik, and I literally only use it because it will report the voltage to me that it sees over the internet. And it was free. And if I run it on the battery, it will literally tell me over the network what my voltage is on the battery at all times. And so that gives me a reading of my battery voltage at all times. And this is an old radio. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a type-in connector right up here that would connect to an antenna normally. And this is the type of radio that would be on an antenna. I don't use this type of radio anymore, and I literally use this just, it's hooked to the AC power all the time. So if this, it's actually hooked behind this power supply, so that if the power supply fails or the AC power goes out, I lose contact to this radio, and I know when the power's out. It's a pretty neat little setup. It's fairly simple, even though it looks like it's got a lot of wires in it. It works quite well, and barring lightning, it works really well all the time. Now down here on the very bottom right, you can see where this box has had some lightning before, and that is a weld spot. This particular tower, I remember one day when I lost contact with this tower about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I get driven out there, and one of the box lids, this nice steel lid, has blown completely off the box against the fence, that shows you the power of lightning right there. It really destroyed some stuff that day. So, but that's kind of what's inside one of my boxes. They're pretty neat to look in, with all of the little pieces and parts. And in a second, I'll show you what's replaced that, what's new technology that's replaced that. Come on, there we go. Here's one when things don't go right. This happened to me day one of COVID-19 lockdown. We got the report that everything was going to be shutting down, and this tower fell to the ground. The winds were about 40 miles an hour that day, and one thing led to another, and the tower fell down with only a foot or so to spare from smashing into this nice carport this guy built underneath this tower after the tower existed. So he got pretty lucky, but everything on the tower was destroyed, which was a fun time to deal with. But that led to, repairing things and things moving forward, being repaired better and the right way. Why did I do that? Okay. So here's where I put ham radio to use. In our disaster recovery, this was the next day. We had already cleaned the tower up. As you can see, where did it go? There we go. Okay, as over here on the left side, you can see the old tower base still in the ground. We just cut off where it fell over and let it go. It's still there right now. And we use the military push-up poles that we use at field day. And they're actually still out there right now. Haven't taken them down yet. Gonna hopefully be doing that pretty soon. And So I used some stuff I learned in ham radio to get myself back up, get some customers back online and people to have some internet back. That was a pretty neat day because we got some stuff, got to apply a lot of different knowledge and get a lot of different stuff going on. So rebuilding the tower, that's been a fun project. We've been working on that the last couple of weeks, and these are a couple pictures from rebuilding the tower. The one over here on the right was taken, I would say, about 90 feet up as we're stacking. One on the left was where we left it that day, I think. Can't really remember. So it's pretty neat. I haven't stacked a tower in a long time, so it's a lot of hard work, but it can be rewarding at the same time. It is 90 feet because over on the very right-hand side of this right-hand picture, you can, at the top right, you can see the guy wire coming down, and we guy every 30 feet on rod 25. So the enclosure. We reused the old battery on the old tower, which was pretty neat, but this is what the new box looks like. It's a lot simpler. We have our trip light, what am I doing here? We have our trip light ISO block in here to try to block lightning. We have a switch in here to get the, to put out all our, what are you doing? Come on. Back up. We have our switching. Draw. We have our switch in here to, this is a PoE switch, so it puts out power on these cables. So all I have to do is plug the cables from the antennas directly into it. And all of that mess of wiring has been replaced by this one box in the middle. So all of that stuff I had to do before is now in this one box, which is really neat. It takes AC power in, it takes a battery in, and it puts 54 volts out DC, and it does all the magic inside of it. So I don't have to do all that stuff anymore. Very affordable too with this this new stuff. So we're trying it out, see how it'll work. It's pretty neat. Oh, come on. So the antennas, this was that same day, putting antennas on the tower. We have 4 different 5 gigahertz sector antennas on the top of the tower and 1 2.4 gigahertz sector to get a couple customers that have to go through trees. As we know, 5 gigahertz as we go up in frequency doesn't like anything in the path, and 2.4 will go through a little bit of stuff, but not a whole lot. But 5 gig definitely doesn't like it. So we get a lot more 5 gig up there, do a lot more stuff because it goes a lot faster. They do have little shield kits on the back of them, little shields to try to help the antenna have a little bit more back to front so that it doesn't hear and talk so much out behind the antenna. It's pretty neat. We put them up north, south, east, west so that we get, and they're 120 degrees, and so they're overlapped to give us nice 360-degree coverage around the tower. So one of the reasons is, well, why would anybody, really care about me being up here with a club meeting? Well, it actually benefits club, all the clubs in the amateur radio in the area quite a bit. For one thing, I've used my position with my own business to facilitate the use of commercial tower site locations for amateur radio use. That's actually a very difficult thing to do. Most commercial tower companies, you say you're amateur radio and they hang up on you. They do not want you there. And I understand it now, as the world gets more things going on, they see it as more liability, and they don't really want anybody who doesn't have to be there. And so it's getting increasingly difficult sometimes to find tower sites to use for our own amateur radio repeaters in the area. So I've been using as much as I can to facilitate the use of commercial tower sites to get that nice big height. We like to get that nice big coverage. We provide internet to local club tower sites. I do this to save the club money and save everyone a little bit of money, because otherwise, if we need an internet connection for either a back channel or say All-Star or Echo Link or some of these other technologies that some people like to play with, you know, instead of paying for that internet, I donate that to the clubs and to whoever needs to use it. This includes the 14696 repeater site, APRS and/or Wing Link or whatever's there. It kind of depends on what's there when we're messing with it, but it also includes remote repeater control, things like that. The Plaza Tower site includes W5MCT. He's got his repeater there, and the DMR is there, which of course needs an internet connection to be able to gate out. And then, well, our APRS used to be there. One day we'll get it back maybe, but there was an APRS node there as well. The D-Star, unfortunately right now, Storm took out the internet at the D-Star site, and we have not been able to get out to get it fixed yet. Looks like the storm bit the internet radio, and like I say, we just haven't been able, with all the lockdown and the restricted access and things like that, we haven't really lined up to get out there and get it fixed, but we'll get there pretty soon. The 210 provide internet to the 145.210 for the All-Star in order to do all of the All-Star node linking and things like that, to do all that NCTC and things like that. Surplus equipment. Anytime I find surplus equipment or it's given to me and it's of course of no use to me because I'm not really doing VHF channels or UHF channels, a lot of that times that stuff, either if it's useful at all, it gets, you know, is who wants it, who needs it, you know, what are we going to do with this stuff? Well, I hang on to it until we find a good use for it. I'm always willing to talk to people. Primarily this is not things like radios. It's more of repeater hardware or repeater style antennas like DB224s, DB408s, things like that. These are the types of big repeater antennas you wouldn't have at your home, but you'd have them at a repeater site. They work much better there. And shop nights. I use the tools and everything we have to help other people through shop nights. And our shop at the office to give a place for us to go work on things, to gather. We don't have a clubhouse or I'd say, or anything like that. We rely on the church, but the church isn't set up to be a shop. And sometimes we want to play with our hands. That's where we are with hands. We want to get in there and break stuff so we can fix it. So we got to get that. We got to get that shop night back to rolling sometime. That's all I really had. I can take questions through here, but if you have any other questions or comments or anything, feel free to give me an email. I hang out on repeaters every now and then, and I'm always open to anything anybody wants, but that's all I really had for what I had. And if anybody has anything, please let me know. Wow.
Okay. Can everyone hear me still?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, I know I speak for the whole club. I appreciate you doing this presentation, but I also appreciate everything you do for the club. And I know you did some of the things, but I learned that you do a little more than I thought you did. So I certainly appreciate that, and it makes it's a benefit to every one of us. So I can't say thank you enough for that. So is there any other business? Anyone have any questions or input before we adjourn? Well, nothing heard. Appreciate everybody checking in. We had a good number of check-ins, and we've had some good nets. And so like Benjamin says, stay radioactive out there and check up on all your friends, and let's keep ham radio going and the technology behind it going. And that sale John Newman's talking about, I've helped to go take some of that equipment down. Several of us did, and we was over there the other day putting it out. And I'm telling you, that's more electronic and ham radio equipment I've ever seen in one place in my entire life. It's almost like some of the big tailgate sales. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for anything, come out there and look, because you might possibly find it. So that's all I have. So nobody has anything else. Good night, and be careful out there. Stay safe.